After Robert's death, his country house became orphaned. Sandra couldn't manage the household alone, and I volunteered to help. At first, I came once a month to fix a leaking faucet, mow the lawn, then more frequently, "John, you're a real treasure," Sandra would say, setting the table after another day's work in the garden. "I don't know what I'd do without your help." I watched her bustling in the kitchen and caught myself thinking that at 50 she looked amazing. Yoga and proper nutrition had done their work. A slender figure, smooth skin, lively sparkle in her eyes. "Karen is so lucky to have you." She would place a plate of homemade pie in front of me. "Such a caring husband." "Just helping out as a neighbor," I would joke, trying not to notice how her hair gleamed golden in the sunlight. With the arrival of summer, work increased. The garden required constant care, and Sandra decided to renovate the terrace. "Maybe we should hire workers," Karen suggested. "Why?" I was surprised. "I can handle it." "You spend too much time there." "Your mom needs help." Karen gave me a strange look but remained silent. That day was particularly hot. I was working in the garden when Sandra came out with lemonade. "Take a break." She handed me a frosted glass. Such heat. She wore a light summer dress that revealed tan shoulders. Beads of sweat glistened on her neck. "Thanks," I looked away, feeling my throat go dry. "You know," she sat next to me on the bench, "sometimes I miss Robert most in moments like these. He loved working in the garden." "I know." I remembered how my father-in-law had been proud of his roses. "You're somewhat like him." She looked at me with some new intonation. "Just as reliable." Something in her voice made me tense up. Or was it the heat? "I'll go continue." I stood up, feeling strangely embarrassed. "Of course," she smiled. "Just don't overwork yourself." All day I felt her glances from the window, and for the first time I noticed how often she found reasons to come out to the garden, to water flowers, to gather herbs for tea. In the evening, returning home, I caught myself planning my next visit, and it wasn't just about the unfinished terrace. "How's Mom?" Karen asked at dinner. "Fine," I tried to speak casually. "Lots of work in the garden." "Maybe I should go with you next time." "No need," I answered too quickly. "I mean, you have lots of work." She looked at me intently but remained silent again, and I was already thinking about tomorrow, about the hot sun, about Sandra's light dresses and her furtive glances. And somewhere deep inside I understood this was the beginning of something dangerous. July turned out unbearably hot. I arrived early in the morning, hoping to work before the peak heat. Sandra met me on the porch in short shorts and a tank top. "Coffee?" She waved a cup. "Just brewed." I tried not to watch how a drop of sweat rolled down her neck. "Thanks. Better start before it gets too hot." "I'll help." She headed to the flower beds. "The roses need tying up." We worked side by side. Her elbow would occasionally brush against mine when she reached for the pruning shears. She smelled of something floral and summer. "Ouch!" She suddenly pulled back her hand. "I think I pricked myself." "Let me see." I took her hand in mine. A tiny drop of blood appeared on her finger. "It's nothing." But she didn't withdraw her hand. I took out a handkerchief, dabbed the small wound. Her skin was so soft. "Thank you." She looked up, and something flickered in her eyes, something dangerous. By noon the heat became unbearable. I took off my shirt, feeling her gaze on me. "Should we take a break?" she suggested. "It's cooler in the gazebo." In the shade of the old grape arbor, it was indeed easier to breathe. Sandra brought cold tea. "Do you work out a lot?" she asked suddenly. "What?" "You're in great shape." She glanced over my torso. "Try to stay fit." "It shows." She smiled in a new way. "Karen is lucky." "Sandra!" "What?" She moved closer. "Can I compliment my son-in-law?" She smelled of sun-warmed skin and something else, something intoxicating. "You can." My voice was hoarse. But, you know." She remained silent, looking at me through half-lowered lashes. A drop of sweat rolled down her neck, disappearing into her tank top. "It's hot," she whispered. "Yes, but I wasn't sure anymore it was just about the weather." "I'll go change." She stood up. "This top is soaked through." I watched her walk to the house, swaying her hips. The shorts barely covered her long, tanned legs. Damn. The phone vibrated. A message from Karen. "How's it going?" "Maybe I'll come help." "Everything's fine," I wrote. "Just hot." "Yes," Mom mentioned. "Take care of yourself." Mom mentioned, I wonder what else Sandra had told her daughter. She returned in a light sundress that only emphasized all the curves of her body. "That's better," she smiled, sitting next to me. Too close. "I should probably go." I stood up. "It'll only get hotter." Stay, she caught my hand. Let's have lunch together. I made your favorite pie. I should have left, should have made up an excuse. All right, I heard my voice say. Just let me finish with the roses. I'll help. She stood up, and her dress momentarily clung to her damp skin. We returned to the roses, but something had changed. The air between us seemed electrified. Every accidental touch sent shivers through me, and I was no longer sure I could stop if she came too close again. The roses were forgotten. We sat on the veranda, and each sip of cold tea seemed insufficient to cool the growing tension. Tell me how you and Karen met, Sandra suddenly asked. You know that story. I want to hear your version. She sat with her legs tucked under her, and the strap of her sundress had slipped off her shoulder. I couldn't tear my eyes away from that exposed patch of skin. It was in college I began trying to focus. She was so proper. And now? What about now? Is she still proper? There was some new tone in her voice. Or was I imagining it? Sandra. What? She leaned closer, adjusting the strap. I'm just asking. Her knee touched mine. By accident? We shouldn't, I whispered. Shouldn't what? Her voice became husky. Talk? You know what I mean. She stood up, walked to the veranda railing. The sun shone through the thin fabric of her dress, outlining her silhouette. Sometimes, she said quietly, I feel so lonely in this house. I approached her. Sandra. Don't. She turned around. I know this is wrong. I know you're my daughter's husband, but I can't stop thinking. About what? About how you look at me. About how I took a step closer, then another. Only inches remained between us. How you what? Want you, she breathed. It was like an explosion. All barriers, all forbidden, crumbled in an instant. I kissed her, hungrily, desperately, like a man dying of thirst who finally found water. She responded with equal fervor. Her hand slid across my back, my fingers tangled in her hair. We shouldn't, I whispered, kissing her neck. I know, she pressed closer, I know. Somehow we ended up in the bedroom. Time stopped, dissolving in the summer twilight. Her whispers sounded like music, and her touches burned even through fabric. John! Her voice mixed tenderness and desperation. Reality ceased to exist. Later we lay trying to catch our breath. The setting sun slowly crept across the walls, bringing us back to reality. What have we done? She whispered. I watched the sunset play on her skin, how her hair was tousled on the pillow, and understood there was no way back. What we wanted, I answered, kissing her shoulder, what we've been thinking about for a long time. Karen will never forgive. I know. And we won't be able to stop. I know. I pulled her closer. And I don't want to stop. She turned to me. What now? I don't know, I answered honestly. But I know I can't pretend anymore. Somewhere in the house, a phone rang. Karen. Reality reminded us of itself again. But we both understood this was just the beginning of something wrong, dangerous, but inevitable. You're late. Karen didn't even look up from her book when I returned home. Lots of work. I headed to the shower, as if water could wash away the traces of Sandra's kisses from my skin. The following days turned into torture. I couldn't stop thinking about that evening, about her skin, about her whispers. The phone was bursting with messages. I miss you, she wrote. I miss you too, I replied, hiding the phone from my wife. Come tomorrow, need to fix a shelf in the garage. We both knew there was no shelf. Honey, maybe we should visit Mom together, Karen suggested at breakfast. I choked on my coffee. Why? Haven't been there in a while, and you were planning to go anyway. I have a client meeting, I lied. Another time. In Sandra's house, everything reminded me of that evening. The couch where our kisses began, the stairs we climbed, unable to tear ourselves away from each other. I can't take this, she whispered as we lay in bed after another meeting. It's killing me. I know, I kissed her shoulders, but I can't be without you. We have to decide something. We should, but instead we kept falling into the abyss of passion again and again. Every visit was a risk. Every call could expose us, but we couldn't stop. You've changed, Karen said one evening, become distant. Just tired. From what? From constant trips to Mom's? I froze. What do you mean? Nothing, she shrugged. Just that you spend too much time there. Was there suspicion in her voice? Or was I imagining it? Your mom needs help. I know, it's just, she's changed too. Become somehow happy. I felt my back go cold. That evening, I wrote to Sandra. We need to be more careful. Karen suspects something. Come over, she replied. We'll talk. But there was no talk. As soon as she opened the door, we lost our heads again. "This is madness," she whispered between kisses. "Complete madness," I agreed, unbuttoning her blouse. We gave in to passion as if it was the last time. Desperately, greedily, as if trying to get our fill of each other. "I love you," slipped out of me. She froze. "Don't." "Why?" "Because it only makes everything more complicated." But it was too late. The words had escaped, and they couldn't be taken back. Just as we couldn't take back all those moments of passion, all the kisses, all the touches. We were doomed, and deep inside we both knew it. "Mom's seeing someone," Karen said at dinner. "She's glowing." I nearly dropped my fork. "What makes you think that?" "Woman's intuition, and I've known her for a long time. She started wearing makeup, bought new lingerie. How do you—" "Went to see her last week. Accidentally saw receipts from the store." I remembered that lingerie, black, lacy— Wait, Karen was at Sandra's? When? "You didn't say you went—" "Was I supposed to?" She gave me a strange look. She is my mother. That night I couldn't sleep. Wrote to Sandra. "We need to talk. Urgently." "Come tomorrow," she replied. "Karen's at work until 8. But the next morning, Karen unexpectedly stayed home. Not feeling well. "Then maybe I should stay too," I mumbled. No, go," she smiled oddly. "Mom's expecting you." Something in her tone made me uneasy. At Sandra's house, I immediately sensed something was wrong. It was too quiet. "Sandra?" "In the kitchen." Her voice sounded tense. She stood by the window, pale as death. "Karen knows." "What?" "She found your messages on my phone yesterday when she came over." My legs went weak, and said she's coming here right now. As if confirming her words, the sound of a car pulling up came from outside. "Damn!" Sandra clutched her head. "What do we do?" But it was too late. The front door burst open. "Mom! John!" Karen's voice rang with fury. "Where are you?" We froze in the kitchen like guilty teenagers. I instinctively stepped away from Sandra. Karen entered, holding a phone. "Miss you. Can't wait to see you. Last night was incredible." She read the messages with a trembling voice. "Nice, isn't it?" "Darling," Sandra began. "Shut up!" Karen threw the phone on the table. "How could you? My own mother, my husband." "Karen, listen." I stepped toward her. "Don't come near me," she recoiled. You're disgusting, both of you." "We didn't want—" Sandra's voice broke. "Didn't want? What did you want? To sleep behind my back? To destroy the family?" Her words hit like slaps, but there was nothing to object to. She was right. "I'm filing for divorce," she said more calmly. "And you know what, Mom? I don't want to see you again, ever." She turned to leave, but stopped at the door. I hope it was worth it. We stood in deafening silence, listening to her car drive away. "What now?" Sandra whispered. I looked at her. The woman for whom I had destroyed my marriage. The woman I loved despite everything. "Now," I said, taking her hand, "we need to decide what's more important, our love or everything else." The next few days turned into a nightmare. Karen posted everything on Facebook. Our phones were exploding with calls from relatives and friends. "Traitor!" Karen's sister shouted when we were picking up my things from the house. "You and your lover destroyed our family!" Sandra sat silently in the car, head down. I could see her shoulders trembling. "Maybe we should leave," I suggested in the evening. "Start over somewhere?" "What's the point?" She laughed bitterly. "You can't run from yourself." We rented an apartment on the outskirts of town, tried to live normally, but the shadow of what we'd done haunted us. "You know," Sandra said one night, "sometimes I wake up and think, it would have been better if you had just fixed that damn fence and left." "Do you regret it?" "Falling in love? No, destroying my daughter's life every second." Karen filed for divorce. Her lawyer was merciless, presented everything in the worst possible light. The town was buzzing with gossip. "Can you imagine?" our neighbor said, not knowing who we were. "A mother stole her daughter's husband. How horrible!" Sandra stopped leaving the house. I watched her fading away. "Maybe you should talk to her," I suggested. "To Karen." "She won't answer." She wrote a letter, long, full of remorse and love. Karen sent it back unopened. And then Sandra learned that Karen was pregnant with my child. "I can't do this," she said that evening. "I can't be the reason my grandchild grows up without a father." "What do you mean?" "Go back to her." Her voice trembled. "Ask for forgiveness. Maybe she—" "What about us?" "There is no us anymore." She turned to the window. "There never was. Just a mistake that cost too much. I love you. And I love my daughter and my future grandchild." I looked at her back, understanding she was right. We had lost. Passion, love. It all shattered against reality. "I'm sorry," I whispered, kissing her for the last time. "I'm sorry," she echoed. I left the apartment without looking back. A taxi was waiting downstairs. "Where to?" asked the driver. I gave Karen's address. I don't know if she'll forgive me. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forget Sandra. But sometimes love is measured not by what you get, but by what you can give up. The taxi pulled away. In the rearview mirror, I saw Sandra's silhouette in the window. They say summer love is the brightest, but sometimes it burns too quickly, leaving only the ashes of destroyed lives behind. Did you like this story? Let us know in the comments what you liked. Subscribe to our storytelling podcast. Also, don't forget to like and ring the bell so you don't miss more interesting stories. See you soon.